let's get it going. First of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Julia Lunardini. I'm with the Office of Student Involvement. I'm thrilled to be here with you all as we explore the LEADS conference topic of breaking norms and building voices. I'm joined by my colleague, Chantel Freeman, also from the Office of Student Involvement, and she'll help me with facilitating this session, and you'll be seeing her in the chat. Before we have the pleasure of introducing you to our speaker for this session, we want to take a minute to review some housekeeping items. You've probably already heard them once today or yesterday, but we're going to cover it again. Number one, microphones and cameras are not enabled for this session. Your microphone will remain muted to reduce background noise. The chat, however, will be available during the presentation, in which we welcome you to engage with. However, we encourage you to hold on to any questions you have for the presenter until the Q&A at the end, and the presenter will not be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions while the presenter is speaking, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll keep track of them and we'll bring them back at the Q&A as well. Most importantly, we ask that everyone be kind. We're all here to learn, engage, and be with our community. Please do not photograph, screenshot, or record anyone in attendance. We also ask that you refrain from sharing any offensive content or using inappropriate language. Thank you so much for your cooperation in this. Additionally, Teams has the ability to provide live captioning. If this is of interest to you, click More in the navigation bar with the 3 dots, then Language and Speech, and turn on live captioning. Finally, this webinar is being recorded. There is no obligation to use the chat, your camera, or your microphone for participation. Chantel will now read our accessibility and accommodations slide.
Fantastic. Thanks, Julia. All right, so now I'm just going to take a minute to share SNHU's access and accommodations information, which just serves as a reminder for resources available for our community members, which you see here on your screen. So your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It's our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. So if there are aspects of design or delivery of our virtual events that present barriers to accessibility, please notify one of the following. So online students can reach out to our Online Accessibility Center by emailing oac@snhu.edu or by phone at 866-305-9430. Our campus students are welcome to reach out to the Campus Accessibility Center by emailing cac@snhu.edu or by phone at 603-644-3118. And SNHU staff and faculty are welcome to reach out to our Human Resources Office by emailing hr@snhu.edu. So now I'd like to turn the floor over to Julia, who is going to introduce our fabulous speaker for today. If we could pop to that next slide.
Thank you. I am so excited to introduce you all to Amy Schultz. Amy is a writer and adjunct faculty member at SNHU. Her first book, soon to be published, is called Invisible, A Professional Mom's Successful Pursuit to be Seen. She lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Amy earned a psychology degree from Augustana University and an MBA from the University of St. Thomas. She teaches organizational leadership at Southern New Hampshire University and has led groups on controversial topics through the Minnesota Council of Churches Respectful Conversations Project. And with that, Amy, we're so excited to welcome you to the floor.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me okay, first of all?
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to share with you how to lead to inspire confidence and creativity. So, and thank you for attending and taking time for this. So, all right, so why should we lead to inspire confidence and creativity? So even though you may not have a leadership title, you can lead in your organization, right? Your home and your community. As a leader, do you have employees, family members, or followers who don't speak up? Why is this? Why is it important to encourage people to share their ideas, their contrary opinion even, that cannot be so easy to listen to sometimes? So I'd like to encourage you to put in comments, why do you think it's important or not to encourage people to share their ideas? So this is what I'm going to address today. So where do you lead? At home as a parent? In the community, like community volunteering, clubs, organizations, at work? I have some students that have said, well, I'm not a leader, I don't lead anywhere, but they do, they actually do. It's not, you don't have to specifically have a leadership title to be considered a leader and to lead in this world. So even if you're not a manager, you can lead in many ways at work. So who doesn't speak up? Who does not have a seat at the table? Oftentimes it's women, minorities, young people with less experience. For example, 23% of women are afraid to speak up at work. Were there any comments, or should I continue?
Right now, the only comment we have is everyone deserves to be heard. I feel like everyone has a voice and should be heard, so everyone is agreeing so far.
Great, wonderful, wonderful. Great, so for example, 23% of women are afraid to speak up at work. And here's a few statistics for you. Diverse companies enjoy 2.5 times higher cash flow per employee. Diverse management has been shown to increase revenue by 19%. Gender diverse companies and executive teams outperform less gender diverse peers. 3 in 4 job seekers and workers prefer diverse companies and coworkers. And 61% of employees have experienced workplace discrimination, and that's a lot of people when I saw that. So by giving people a voice, you're fostering their confidence and their creativity. Speaking up in a group, whether it's a small group, large audience, it's just difficult for anyone. The National Institute of Health says that 74% of people feel speech anxiety. That's a lot of people that are afraid of speaking in front of others. So that's like most of us here. So from nervousness to panic, fear of failure, ridicule, or the feeling that they're not qualified to speak on things. So speaking up in a group or giving a leader feedback can be intimidating. So think about your own experience. Have you ever felt like that? And my guess is, yeah, you have. So how can you, as a leader or a follower, overcome this? First, what can help is to settle into feelings of discomfort. I have this mantra that I use, and that is, I am comfortable feeling uncomfortable. And whenever I feel uncomfortable and I know that I need to lead and I need to speak up and use my voice, I oftentimes say that mantra. I'm comfortable feeling uncomfortable. So if all of us use our voices, we'll be a better society. We'll have better products, better relationships. Sometimes hearing what others say is uncomfortable. So please, I would like to encourage you to settle into this feeling too. When someone's not if someone's giving you critical feedback, say like in school, a professor gives you some feedback, settle into that feeling. Because usually, like in that example, a professor wants to help you. They want to give you good feedback. And oftentimes it can be critical feedback, but that is meant to help you and be a better student, better whatever you're trying to be in that class. So I encourage you to settle into feelings of discomfort because it'll only help you grow. And it'll also help you use your voice too. So in an article in Plane and Pilot magazine, the article says that failing to say something when a fellow pilot is about to do something risky seems crazy, but it's actually a well-known phenomenon. So there are a lot of situations out there in this world where people even though it may be beneficial to them or beneficial to the organization or to the customer or whatever, they don't speak up because whatever, intimidation or whatever. So it's a common thing. And I think it would make us a better society, better organizations if people would speak up. So as a leader, you need to be the change needed to give people a voice. Okay, so how can leaders influence? So these are all the reasons, some reasons. I would say the best reasons why people don't speak up. They may feel intimidated, unsafe, shamed, self-critical, perfectionistic. They have self-doubt or fear. They're unwanted, isolated, apathetic, and they may also feel restrained or blocked due to societal norms. And I'll go through each of these and explain what I mean by them, and give you tools and techniques to help overcome some of these things. So, and all of the concepts that I'm going to be talking about are from my book, Invisible, A Professional Mom's Successful Pursuit to be Seen. So have you ever felt any of these things on this slide? My guess is, yeah, it's very possible you have felt these things. So people say that emotions need to stay out of the workplace, but the fact is that people are emotional and they react positively and negatively to situations. So as a leader, you must consider this and manage people's feelings, help people manage their own feelings. So, and also as a leader, it's your job to achieve certain results, like increase performance, provide value to the company you work for. So I'm going to share some tools and techniques that can help you. Personally, I have grown as a speaker into the speaker I am today, after learning from my mistakes and celebrating my successes. The image in the upper right corner is me speaking to the Minnesota legislature a couple of years ago on a bill I believed would make a difference. And I don't know if I would have had the courage to do something like that several years ago. So people can learn these things and change their behavior, and I have as an example. So let's get going. Intimidated, unsafe, or shamed. So I'm going to go over all these feelings that keep people from using their voice and give you the tools you need to help to overcome these barriers. So what can you look for as a leader to know if people feel intimidated, unsafe, or shamed? People may be nervous, fidgeting, avoiding eye contact. People may defer to the leader's opinion, perfectionism, stuttering, or speaking in a quiet voice. Conflict avoidance is also common. So an example, having a mentor can be an amazing learning experience. They can give you support and tools to achieve more. When I was looking for a job in human resources, which is my background, I was a member of a community HR organization. They offered a mentorship program, which I took part in as a mentee in 2009 during the Great Recession. So those of you who have gone through that period in time, you know what I mean, how hard it was to find a job. I had a very difficult time finding a job. And so I thought that a mentor would bolster my skills. I was given a mentor who was rather intimidating. Over the year of meeting occasionally with him, I did learn a lot. And I especially learned how to manage my own feelings when I felt intimidated by him. He was nice. He was a good guy, but very critical. So my personality is one where I feel things very deeply. Some of you may relate to me on that. And often I feel judged. Often I felt judged by him for not doing better than I did. He could have made our interactions more of a safe space for me to feel okay making mistakes. And I didn't push myself as hard as I could have because I did have these feelings. So For example, we did a mock interview to help me build interviewing skills. I was afraid to try new things for fear of failing and experiencing his criticisms and disapproval. Now some people thrive on that sort of environment and they excel, and others shut down. For those of us that shut down in those situations, we can gain a lot by learning to be comfortable with this discomfort. A good leader meets their followers where they are and helps them build their skills while still challenging them to improve. So this is called situational leadership. So leadership in which you adapt your style to the situation and your followers. So here are my suggestions for how you can help others speak up when they feel intimidated, unsafe, and shamed. So give responsibility that they can feel good about. Here's a fun example I had. When I was in my 20s, I was a bridesmaid. And as people know, gowns don't have pockets. And at the reception, I needed to, keep my car keys with me. I didn't want to leave them in a purse somewhere in the building. So I asked, I like giving people opportunities. So I asked my friend's 12-year-old son to hold my keys. And he was very happy to do that. And he felt really good about that. And when I told my friend that I did this, she's like, "You did what?" That made me a little nervous. So I did get my keys back later. But he was, that gave him some power, that gave him some responsibility. And when you do that, they feel good about themselves and they are encouraged to step out and do things they may not otherwise have done. So if people feel unsafe, I encourage you to respond with curiosity and interest. As a teacher, sometimes students turn in late work. It happens to someone who feels unsafe. Maybe they're afraid of being judged by the professor, rather than saying something like, why have you not finished your work? A professor could say, "I'm checking in with you. I noticed that your work has not been completed yet. Could you give me an update?" Sometimes directness is perceived as judgment. So, pushing, don't micromanage. Example, if you trust someone to do work, give them the space to do it without breathing down their neck, while being available to support them when needed. All right, on to the next one. Signs that people are being self-critical, perfectionistic, self-doubting, and fearful. They could be very hesitating, saying, "Oh, I think, I'm not sure," or "I don't know," rather than just saying what they want to say. They may seek reassurance, avoid risk-taking, deflecting compliments, never asking for help, not expressing opinion. They may have black and white thinking, irritation, defensiveness, and overanalyzation of mistakes. So appearances also may carry more weight than the actual results. You don't see innovation, you don't see new ideas. And I'm going to mention something about imposter syndrome here. Imposter syndrome, for those who don't know what that is when you are, say you're in charge of something, you're a leader, but deep inside, you just don't feel like you are that leader. And it's very limiting when you feel that way. It kind of feels like you're faking it. And I've had both men and women in my courses say that they experience imposter syndrome. Okay, so here's a study. 70% of women who experienced ageism at work didn't speak up because they didn't think it would make a difference. And I've had a lot of people tell me this sort of thing. Well, I don't speak up because it's not going to make a difference anyways. No one's going to listen to me. So what does that say about how women are valued in the workplace if they don't think anything they will say will make a difference? Here's an example. Speaking, I try to be active in my community. Both my kids have reached the highest level as a scout in the Boy Scouts of America. I'm on the President's Cabinet, which is a group of community leaders who advise the Scout Executive and the board. We have a meeting of 100 or so leaders quarterly. Having been traditionally a boy-only led organization, at one point there were only a handful of women community leaders who attended. Often in meetings, I was the only one of only a few female voices with a female perspective. The meetings would start with speakers and announcements and would break out at the end into smaller groups, and oftentimes those small groups were 40 plus people. I'd learned a few techniques to make myself stand out when in a discussion, and I forced myself to do this. The techniques I used were either sit across from the leader of the session or sit next to them. And I always made a point to at least say one thing, make one comment, or ask one question in the discussion. Now, this is a goal that I set for myself ever since I was in college. And this would frequently be scary. I can feel it right now just thinking about it. If I were trying to get a word in, which is oftentimes difficult to do, because of the speed of the discussion, my face would flush, my heart would beat fast, my palms would get sweaty. Does this sound familiar to you? Sometimes I doubted myself, and I felt that I had to be perfectly articulate and have complete thoughts before I spoke up. Then I'd rush through what I would say because it was my experience that it was a very rare thing to be given time, and I'd be interrupted. So as a leader in a discussion like this, can you think of any ways of how you could make a person who might feel self-doubt and fearful be able to speak up if you want their input, and you do want their input, even if it's, not workable or whatever, you want to be able to give people the opportunity to speak their mind. So after many years of being on the cabinet, I now feel very comfortable and I enjoy breaking in and speaking, especially when the ideas other members bring up are from old paradigms that only hold the organization back. I learned to formulate my ideas as I spoke, and I realized that it was detrimental to me to try to be perfect, and my voice is valuable. All right, so when people feel these things, what should you give them? So if they're self-critical and perfectionistic, let me give you an example. Discussing in a group, as I've talked about before, can be intimidating and difficult, especially when there are loud voices. And sometimes people feel like they have to articulate themselves perfectly or as perfectly as possible. So I believe that online learning is really great for giving a voice. I'm an online professor, so like threads rather than group discussion creates an environment where everyone has an equal voice and everyone can use their voice. It encourages creativity because it allows students to go at their own pace and they have an opportunity to build their skills. Okay, so self-doubt and fear. I'm a conflict consultant. I facilitate listening sessions for organizations that want to get people listening to understand. And oftentimes it's a contentious topic. I adapted my style recently to a discussion about guns in America on the social media platform X, and I used one of their spaces. I got 4 pro-gun rights people and 4 pro-gun control people, and in the space, they sat down together. Now, usually you would think, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible. They're going to yell at each other and all that. But my process is one where I start out securing an agreement from each person in the session that they will follow the rules of the listening session, and then I hold them to it. And usually these rules are basically listening rules, respect rules, take only the time you're allotted. So everyone's given equal time. And if they don't follow these rules, they don't have a seat at the table. And this helps with listening. Give equal time, have people follow rules, and then hold them to those rules that they've agreed to. In this kind of situation, individuals do not have fear of insults. They don't have fear of criticism because they know the conversation will be respectful. So, okay, here are some signs that someone feels unwanted, isolated, or apathetic. An employee is counting down the minutes until they leave. They may give minimal effort. They're ignored, productivity is down, and they don't feel appreciated. In a relationship, there aren't deep conversations, and individuals spend most of their time alone. They may have trouble concentrating. So I'm going to make one caveat here. If someone is experiencing depression, mental illness, or substance abuse, I always encourage them, if you feel comfortable, to get help if it's a problem. Exercise, social interaction, healthy eating can all improve those conditions. So when my daughter was a toddler and my son was a baby, I was often overwhelmed with the constant care, feeding, diapering, tantrums, and all the things mothers handle in a young family. I oftentimes felt alone and isolated. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. So I loved being a mom. I loved my little ones. But one day folded into another because I was doing the same things over and over. I had some interaction with adults, but I needed challenges other than the challenges of parenting. That was just me. And at times I became unsure if my skills that I had from work or whatever could at all be wanted anymore. So I returned to graduate school to get my MBA to improve my situation. I was in evening school, and when my partner got home from work, once a week I'd go to class from 6 to 9 p.m. and then have a snack and catch up on reading at a local restaurant to ensure that the kids were in bed by the time I'd get home. This was something that I needed as an adult. And I need to say here that one's partner is critical to one's visibility and voice. It's been a long time since I'd taken courses, and I was so proud of myself when, after the first small group discussion in a business law class with my classmates, and these classmates were also mostly working professionals, in my first class back, I was able to contribute to the discussion. And what did this do? This empowered me to continue to go on. So what can you do as a leader when people feel these things? When I was on the board several years ago of a residential cooperative, and my expertise again is HR. When I was on the board, I took leadership of any human capital issues that we needed to discuss, and they listened to me because they knew that was my expertise, and I felt needed because I had a unique place on the team. So if it seems like someone doesn't care, maybe they don't. Appreciation can go a long, long way to help with this. I had a manager once who, during the team meetings, sometimes she would give us little gift baskets and show us appreciation. She'd give us words of appreciation during our team meetings. So I felt appreciated, and I felt like she heard me. Okay, so this is our last group here. This can be sticky because we could be talking about discrimination here. So signs would include favoritism, changes in job duties without justification, derogatory comments or jokes in the workplace, and employees falling into traditional male and female roles that limit their knowledge, skills, and abilities. So people may act distant or even aggressive in these kinds of situations. So I had a friend who interviewed at a Fortune 500 company, and she was very educated and qualified for the job. In the interview with one of the managers, she asked about opportunities for promotion. The manager literally said, "Don't worry your pretty head about that." So think about this. If you're in an environment like that, are you encouraged to speak up? Discrimination is illegal. Racism, ageism, sexism. Some people still see little value in some very valuable voices. It's detrimental to the performance of a team and the company to discriminate against a minority population. So what do when you lead minorities who are used to their ideas being diminished? Who you include on the leadership team is very important. They need to know how to distribute power effectively and provide incentives that work to improve performance. What incentivizes for a single young man may be completely different from what incentivizes a mom with small children. So consider these things when you're a leader. Encourage giving leadership responsibilities to anyone on the team who shows promise or initiative. Foster a culture that does not discourage failure. People fail when pushing their abilities limits, right? But people don't know what their limits are if they don't push them. So give power, incentives, and encouragement to be daring. All right, so how do you help someone be visible? My final words on this are every individual has to take responsibility for their own feelings and their own reactions. Because of prior experiences in their life, it may be very hard for some people to overcome those experiences. These experiences that silence them. But it is possible with awareness and work. So now I'm not suggesting putting someone in a situation where they're not qualified for, because that only leads to failure. That doesn't help people. That doesn't help people speak up. So, and leadership is truly top down. A leader can help by creating a culture that is empathetic and fosters curiosity and individual agency. So in my book, I talk about invisible voices, like the one I'm discussing today. So how can you help people be visible? As a leader, use your emotional intelligence to break norms that do not serve you or your team, nor create value for the company. Empathy fosters confidence because people feel understood, and encourage curiosity rather than we've tried that and it doesn't work, or that's a stupid idea. Curiosity leads to creativity and effective problem solving. Give power, and power leads to agency and innovation. So on this slide, which is my last slide, feel free to take a screenshot. This is everything that I've talked about in brief. And refer to it in the future if you have a challenging situation with follower, employee, subordinate, family member who is afraid to speak up. So with that, I'm going to ask for any questions.
So we've had a couple questions come through while you were speaking, and I welcome anyone who has questions now to put them in the chat, and we'll go through as many as we can. Our first question came from Johnny, and his question said, do you feel this intimidation that people feel to speak up starts from home or in childhood, where we're told to just follow the rules or do as an authority figure says? And if not, where do you feel that intimidation can grow its roots?
Okay. Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Johnny. The reading that I've done on this sort of thing is that oftentimes it does come from early childhood and how your parents and how your teachers treat you and what sort of power they give you or not. So, like you said, you could learn from childhood that you don't have that power to speak up. And so that just becomes ingrained in you as you're an adult. And it's possible to get over that. Like I said in my presentation, it takes awareness and also work on yourself and courage too. Because if you're feeling like, oh, I should not speak up because I'm not supposed to speak up, because all those little voices in your head from childhood are saying, you know, be seen but not heard, right? That sort of thing. Or, in your childhood, maybe you weren't listened to and you didn't get your needs met, whatever. You may have those voices still in your head, but you can, with courage, get over that. Sometimes that may be the root, or, as you grow older and you're in a classroom or you're with friends or whoever, you may not be given a voice in that situation too. So it can also grow from that as well. Great question.
And our second one also comes from Johnny. He got some really good questions in early, so I wanted to make sure we touched on these. And I know you covered this a little bit with your discussion around becoming really comfortable with being uncomfortable. But Johnny also asked, any other tips on how to build intrinsic strength to stand up if you've never taken this stance before, if this is a practice that's new to you?
Okay. Yeah, I think being prepared, that's one thing. If you know that you have an opportunity to speak up, be prepared with what you want to say. Because if you're trying to think of what you're saying while you can't listen and think at the same time. So that can help you, is be prepared. And yeah, like I said before, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and just sometimes, even if I think, what's the worst thing that can happen? What's the possible worst thing that can happen? And usually it's not bad. Maybe someone will just say, well, that's not going to work because of blah, 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 whatever. But, if you don't, sometimes it's a numbers game for those sorts of things. The more ideas that are out there, the more possibility you have getting to the best solution. So think of those things when you are doing this, and don't, I know it's hard, but don't take things personally. I know it's so easy to say that, but if you are aware, and that helps a lot, just knowing, I'm just going to say it, and wherever the chips fall, they fall. And it's not going to be the end of the world if someone's critical. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
Our next question comes from Karina, and she asked, how do you deal with someone or a group of people who do not give you the opportunity or a chance to speak up? Is there a way that you've learned how to insert yourself in your practices?
Okay. Yeah, you may be talking about situations where the discussion is so fast-paced, and that's really great, because you've got a lot of people here that care a lot about whatever you're discussing, and they have ideas and creativity is flowing. And so, yeah, I totally get it. When some of us are taught from an early age or whatever that, wait, don't interrupt people. Don't interrupt people. But you know what? It's okay to interrupt people, especially in situations where you do have such a fast-paced discussion, and maybe only a few people are the ones that are speaking up. These are the situations where you really need to get more voices, when there's only a few people that they're talking, they don't take a breath, it seems like, right? So but just interrupt them, and usually people don't care. People really don't care if you interrupt. when you're having you know, an idea building session. So yeah, just interrupt. You know, sometimes you're not going to get that space to speak if you're just waiting for someone to take a breath or take a second, because that second's never going to come. So just, you know, just say, you know, just say what you want to say.
And our next question comes from Nicole, and I think it stems right from the same thought pattern, but I wanted to highlight it because I know myself and a lot of females feel this way. But how do you speak up without feeling like you're coming across as rude or being viewed as rude for offering your opinions?
Okay. Yeah. So I think you're getting into people's feelings here, because everyone is going to have a different reaction to what you say. Some people may be like, you know, she's being direct, and I like that. Another person could be thinking, oh my gosh, how rude. How rude. How dare she, you know, why is she being so direct? It's, you know, why doesn't she like sugarcoat her words, or, you know, put filler words in there, like, well, you know, oh, one is like, you may have asked this question already. Strike that from your discussion. You know, who cares if it's already been addressed already, because you may have a different take on it. So yeah, did that answer your question? Hopefully.
Sounded good to me. And
Okay,
I'm gonna do last call for questions in the chat. We just have 2 left that I have here. Our next question comes from Rebecca, and she asks, how do you handle someone who is stuck on the negative no matter what you're offering them and all of the great tools that you had in your chart? What if you're offering someone all of those things, but you feel like they're still stuck in a place that you're trying to pull them out of?
Okay. Well, it goes back to what I was saying. People need to take responsibility for their own feelings and their own reactions. You can only take responsibility for yourself. And they need to take responsibility for themselves and as well. If they're blocking you, if they're not accepting what you're saying, even though you may have like the best ideas, and they're just not accepting it, unfortunately, there's really not a whole lot you can do. If you know that person and you know situations or ways of getting past that, them personally, that could help. Maybe it's something that needs to be discussed one-on-one rather than in a group situation. That might help. But I mean, if someone's not willing to listen to you, they're just not going to listen to you. Yeah. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about that. And they're shutting down the conversation when they do that. They're shutting down innovation. They're shutting down creativity. And I understand why some people may do that because of time restraints, or, you know, they seriously know the best way to do something. But yeah, sometimes there's not a whole lot, and you need to accept that. So some situations are toxic even. So, and in toxic situations, sometimes people just will not listen to you. They will not give you the floor. And that's not a good situation to be in. So.
And we'll wrap it on a positive note. Last question. When does your book come out? Where can we find it? And how can everyone find you? Social media, website, LinkedIn, you tell us.
Okay, sure. Okay. My book right now is in the editing phase, and I'm going to have it out on Amazon sometime this spring. And so you can find it on Amazon once I get it out there, maybe in a month or 2. So this is just like the start of my speaking opportunities for my book. So you can find that on Amazon. You can find me. I spend actually a lot of time on X. So my my handle is lambent_clarity. So it's LAMBENT. Lambent is like a flickering light. I liked that a lot. So I made that my handle. So that's lambent_clarity. So that's my handle on X. You can find me there. You can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Amy K. Schultz. So feel free to contact me there as well. Yeah, so I think that's covered it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I know we have lots of people in the chat asking, so they are excited to connect with you.
Good. Well, I would love to talk to anyone more about this, and I'm looking for opportunities as well. So
lots of thumbs up and hearts on your handle. So I imagine you'll be hearing from people as we move forward. And any final thoughts before we wrap up today that came to you while we were talking about questions?
Okay. Well, I just want to restate, your voice is valuable. Your voice needs to be out there in the world. You have your own perspective, your own way of looking at things, and the world will only be better if people hear your perspective and what you have to say. So get out there, be courageous, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you will only see good things happen. It may be hard, maybe difficult. I totally get that. But it's worth it. Get your voice out there.
So many applause emojis. I wish you could see them. Everyone loves it. And what a perfect way to end on a high note. So on behalf of everyone on the Office of Student Involvement team and the whole LEADS crew, we want to thank you so much for joining us. I personally want to thank Chantel for joining us in the chat and helping out. And thank you to everyone who is attending today and participating in this LEAD session. We hope to see you at all the other sessions available throughout this evening. And please see the chat before you log out for some helpful reminders and links on where you can find Amy Schultz. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Amy, so many thank yous and hearts and claps and thumbs up. And I wish you could see the chat. So everyone was absolutely thrilled. And they're saying thank you as they head out for the day.
Good. All right. Great.
Excellent.
Right, well,
so they're just trickling out.
Terrific.
And we
Thank
are
you
good.
So much, facilitators, Julia, and everyone. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thanks so much. Do you need anything from us before we go?
I don't think so. This is recorded and it's going to be someplace, right?
Yep, we will have the recording